Welcoming you on to the Pro Throw practice fields here in Corvallis, Oregon. Brenden Slaughter, BeaversEdge Publisher, joined by BeaversEdge writer and KGO radio host TJ Mathewson. We're back at Oregon State Fall Camp practice. TJ and I just got done talking to Coach Smith, and we'll obviously have that reaction at BeaversEdge.com. Good conversation today. Fill us in on a lot of different things, getting ready for the scrimmage on Saturday. Have a few more practices this week before the Beavers, again, ultimately gear up for that scrimmage. TJ, what were some of your thoughts from today's action?
I think we did see a little bit more of a clear pecking order today of quarterbacks. DJ 1, Ben 2, but I will say, though, on top of that, I mean, I thought Ben looked pretty good today. So we'll see. We'll show that in the Nugget reports of what exactly he did. But I thought he had some of his best throws of camp today. I mean, otherwise we saw a standout from Jeremiah Noga. He made some nice catches there out wide. But overall, a good defensive performance. And Coach Smith did acknowledge that in his media availability. Like, whenever the ones go against each other down in the trenches, it really is. It's a battle.
Yeah, and you just think of that talent, right? You obviously look at the Oregon State offensive line, knowing the preseason all conference selections that they have, the high level play there, and then as TJ just mentioned, a defensive line that maybe not getting a ton of rep going into the season. Obviously struggled to get after the quarterback at times last year, but we're still stout in the run defense. Obviously, I really think they're going to take that step this year, TJ, and be a lot more productive at just, for lack of better terms, blowing up the opponent's offensive line.
Yeah, and we might get a better sense of that against the offense once they put full pads on and they actually go full speed. We've seen stuff obviously getting whistled down, but in terms of an outlook so far, I mean, that run defense looks pretty good. I mean, It does. They've been bottling these guys up.
Well, I mean, we go back to obviously, just the last few practices. It's been defensive mentality and, the pass rush, just defensive pressure in general. The quarterbacks have had a tough time getting the ball off. And, we'll talk about that more at Beaver's Edge, of course. But just even today, as TJ mentioned, we saw the quarterbacks making some throws on the run and whatnot. It just really shows they're moving them off their spots very fast. And, again, this is still a pretty good offensive line, right? So it's definitely interesting to see. And, normally this time of camp, you expect the defense to be a little ahead of the offense. And, Jonathan got asked during this media availability if he thinks the offense can take a step this year. He's very confident about that group. And, it's easy to see why, TJ. Obviously, you look at the talent, the receivers. You mentioned Jeremiah Noga. A few others made some big-time plays today. And then the group that I kind of watched the most today were the tight end group. And I really think that tight end group, I asked Jonathan about it too, is just a very underrated group. I mean, obviously you lose Luke Musgrave in the offseason, but did you really have Luke Musgrave last year? It's like kind of, right? I mean, it's, for the fact that, they lost him so early in the season after that Fresno State game, threw Jack Velling into the fire. Jake Overman was asked to do more too. And, I've really been impressed with what particularly Jake Overman and Jack Velling have done. But Jermaine Terry, the Cal transfer tight end as well. And then obviously, we haven't seen a ton of Riley Sharp at the position this spring, or fall, after he moved over in the spring. But I could also see that being pretty maintenance related, given that Riley Sharp is like a 6-year senior at this, can come back for his final year.
Right.
And, I don't think they're going to give him more reps than he needs at this point. But definitely something to keep an eye on. And, Jonathan really highlighted the versatility of that group when we talked. And, it's easy to see why.
It is easy to see why. And I'd be curious to see, what kind of role he exactly has. I mean, could we see him? Maybe they don't really have a fullback, so an extra blocker is always needed in that sense, and we wouldn't get to see that in the scrimmage for us to see. No,
of course.
But it would be intriguing and something to think about. With it looks like the pass catching version of the tight ends we've seen quite a bit of.
Well, and again, this is pure speculation on TJ and I's part, but again, it's fair to assume they're not just going to throw the Jack Coletto playbook out of the playbook. No. So with that, you're going to have, Jonathan said at Pac-12 Media Day, there's probably going to be 3 to 4 guys that fill that role. Could Riley Sharp be a guy that's in that role? Could it be, more Deshaun Fenwick? We've seen some interesting wrinkles. And again, for more of those details, head on over to BeaversEdge.com. But again, as we're kind of entering in that second week of camp, TJ, pads are coming on now. We're getting closer. Just what do you ultimately expect to happen in this quarterback battle?
DJ to take control. I mean, because that's why he's here.
Agreed.
That is why he's here, and I think we've seen that here in the first full week of camp. But I think we might see it separate itself a little bit if he really just turns it on and what Jonathan and the coaching staff believe they were getting in DJ when they brought him in as a transfer, and he shows it here in camp. I mean, I feel like we might see a pretty sizable difference. I mean, even today, I saw him using his legs, running up the middle a little bit. Dude's, it's not going to be easy to tackle him.
No.
And by the way, he's also got a rocket of a right arm as well. So I think that's where we see. But, Ben has been good enough, right? He has been good enough. So he's not going to go away quietly, and they're definitely not going to throw away this quarterback battle until, like I predict, game week. Probably. That's what it's going to be.
And again, would you expect anything less? I mean, again, we all kind of know who we think it's going to go, but like Ben has been like, hey, let me show you that I'm going to be competitive in this too, and that's been pretty impressive to us for the most part. But again, obviously we're going to go tour Research Stadium here in a minute. Fall camp, we're into our second week, and stay tuned to BeaversEdge.com as we'll have coverage of our tour and some awesome pictures and whatnot of that as well. But again, Oregon State wrapping up fall camp here. We're into the second week, and it's going to be really interesting to see this week. We got a few more practices, and again, before that scrimmage, and TJ mentioned, usually the scrimmage is when you start to see, things and particularly storylines start to emerge. Sometimes that first scrimmage is a little sloppy, and then by the second scrimmage you dial things in. I think we're going to learn a lot about this football team come Saturday.
Yeah, and especially the backups too. Like, where's the depth? Like, where's that second team offensive line at? Where's the second team defensive line at? That's gonna rotate in. How easy are they going to be able to harass these quarterbacks going too deep on the defensive line? That's really where the great defensive lines are.
Right.
It's like, are you two solid groups deep in terms of getting after the passer? The first group looks good. The second group, I think we might get to pay a little more attention to on Saturday.
Certainly, and again, for our complete coverage from today's practice, including the video with Jonathan Smith, and then obviously all of TJ and I's analysis, first, second team rotations, who's lining up where, how the depth chart is starting to shake out. That's all going to be on the damn board at BeaversEdge.com. So definitely subscribe to BeaversEdge.com. We got an awesome 30-day promo running right now. You can join and enjoy all of our fall camp coverage for free for 30 days before you have to pay anything. So it's an awesome deal we got going right now. Make sure to stay tuned to BeaversEdge.com. TJ and I will continue to be here at most practices and bring you guys complete coverage of Oregon State fall camp.